Hi everyone, I am Josh. Welcome back to my channel today for my homeward book haul. This time it's going to be classics, and I have a pretty big collection of books to show you. Here in this classic collection, I have worked to collect a number of special editions because there were just a lot of classic authors who I really just want to dive into their work. Either they're authors who are brand new to me or authors that I've read before, if only once. And I've intentionally bought these books because I guess I want them there as an opportunity for me to explore them. But more than that, a lot of them are in other genres that are appealing to me that I already like. So in doing that and finding classics that meet my pre-existing interests, I'm able to, I think, explore classics more, but also get more comfortable with them, which is part of why I've really gone out in this collection. This haul here is probably bigger than most of the other ones I've done so far. Maybe, if not the biggest, one of the biggest up there, because I just have so many. Now, if you count the raw books inside of these collections, Jesus, for sure it is the biggest. But even without that, just counting the collections, I'm pretty sure it's a pretty hefty number. It's gonna be like a big stack if I have to try holding it up. So without further ado, let's get going. Okay, let us start with the few set of books here that I have that aren't just a part of a larger special edition. To start with, let's go with the one standalone book I have from this one author, which is going to be Bradbury's Something Wicked This Way Comes. Something Wicked This Way Comes. And this is a classic. I read this last year, maybe it was 2019, and I didn't love this book, unfortunately. I kind of want to reread it because I think part of it was just sort of a language barrier. The way the dialect he uses a little bit, I don't want to say off-putting, but it was just hard to follow. This follows a story of a young boy. He's in his town, and this circus comes to his town, and there's something off about it. The leader of the circus and all the people that are in it, they seem something really off. And next thing we know, weird, dark things start to happen, and there ends up being this central conflict that involves this boy, this town, and the people in this circus. And while I did not love or completely follow the narrative because of the writing style, I will say that the tone here is utter perfection when it comes to horror, gothic, that sort of ominous tone. That is something that is very present, regardless of my difficulty of struggling to connect to it. A bit of criticism here though. I bought this on Thrift Books. I do like this cover. What I don't like is this mass paperback. I don't want that. Next, we're going to go ahead and just jump into one giant collection here that's not like an official special edition, and that's going to be of Daphne du Maurier, the writer of Rebecca. So I'm going to try and go through all of these, and depending on how much time this whole thing ends up being, maybe I'll give you a description of each. But Daphne du Maurier wrote Rebecca, a classic gothic horror-ish, more like just gothic. But it's very ominous, it's very well written. And from what I've heard about her other works is that she's a pretty consistent writer. She may not be like highbrow or anything, but she knows how to write a good gothic thriller, and she seems to know how to do it more than just once. So I'm excited for a number of these. Some of them are more well-known, and then I'm more excited for those, obviously, but there are others that are not as well-known, and I'm really taking a risk going in blind, as I do sometimes with authors that I'm really excited about. And I would put Daphne du Maurier in that sort of barrel of authors. So let's see what we have here. I'm going to start, let's go in order of what I would say intriguement. So the first one's going to be The Doll and Other Stories, I believe. This is a weird library edition. The cover has like a lamination on it, which I guess is good. It makes it last longer. The Doll and Short Stories. I believe The Doll is a movie. I want to say there is a movie about her. Was it The Crows or something? There's a movie about birds. I feel like that's in here. Or shit, is there a different set of collections? I actually have the bird collection at home. So this is her other one, The Doll, which I could have sworn there was like a classic adaptation. I don't think it's as well known as The Birds, but this is one that I'm intrigued to get to. The Doll sounds so ominous, and I would love to find some of her works that go into more than just the gothic. I want to see some, like, I guess, I don't know if I expect hardcore, but I want something that's more intentionally horrific, like, some real scare tactics. Next, we have My Cousin Rachel. Oh, God, that bitch. I'm kidding. I don't know much about this, but this is the one that I've heard the most about, next to that one and Rebecca. A gothic tale of passion and unswerving love that turns to suspicion and fear. Rachel, a woman of exquisite beauty, depends on the great Cornell estate of Philip Ashley. In this tale of good and evil, Philip must decide whether the glorious Rachel, the recent mysterious widow of his beloved cousin, is out to destroy him, or is the innocent victim of a devious man with a tremendous longing to be loved. sounds like kind of a scam artist type things, or is it a scam artist? What I like about this though is it still is very similar to Rebecca. Unfortunately, as far as I know, we do have very heteronormative relationships in her books, but still one that I've heard positive things about. It sounds like a kind of book that would just be a fun ride. Thrillers are something that I really need to tackle more. Next is Jamaica Inn, and this one I haven't really heard much about, but let's just see what the narrative is. Her mother's dying request was to take Mary Ellen on a sad journey across the bleak moorland of Cornell to reach Jamaica Inn, the home of her Aunt Patience, with the coachman's warning echoing in her memory. Mary arrives at a dismal place to find Patience, a changed woman, cowering from her overbearing husband. Affected by the inn's brooding power, Mary is thwarted in an intention to reform her aunt and unwillingly drawn into the dark deeds of Joss and his accomplices. And as she struggles with the events beyond her control, Mary is further thrown by her feelings by a man she must not trust. I feel like there's a recurring theme in these books which revolve around some kind of internal conflict inside of a relationship of some kind, which I don't know if it's necessarily my cup of tea, but after reading Rebecca, I read these and I think to myself, Daphne du Maurier, some type of complicated relationship, and I think to myself, yes, that's exactly what I want from Daphne du Maurier. And I see that after one book, and I went into Rebecca with such trepidation because I wasn't sure how I'd feel about that classic novel, because it being classic, but also because I knew it wasn't strictly horror, that it was gothic, and that generally speaking I tend to like horror more than gothic. But she proved me wrong, which is why I'm coming to these stories that when I hear them, they don't, if it was a modernist take on it, I probably wouldn't be particularly interested in. But when I think to myself, this is Daphne du Maurier, and the work she did in Rebecca, it just really changes my perception of it. Is it justified? I don't know, but I don't need it to be justified as long as I'm excited to read it, and I certainly am. Lastly, we have one more book to add to my Daphne du Maurier collection. Of course, if you check my previous book hauls, I've held other books at my home in Canada. These are just books that I bought from thrift books. But here we are, The King's Gurnard. No, Jesus Christ. The King's General. What the fuck is wrong? I can't read cursive. Is this even cursive? The King's General. And I don't know what this is. As civil war rages across England, the weak prove their courage and the privileged become traitors. Traitors to who? The South or the North? I do not know. A feisty beauty with a sharp wit and sharper tongue, 18-year-old Honor Harris, captures the attention of Richard Grineval, a commanding and charismatic man with a sometimes cruel sense of justice. But when a riding accident cripples Honor days before their wedding, she resigns herself to life without Richard. 15 years later, war forces Honor to shelter with relatives of the estate of Minability. Richard, now a general in the king's army, storms back into her life, bringing with him conflicting emotions, and for Honor, the discovery of a dark secret at Marell. Wait, when was there a civil war in England? Was there a civil war in England? Am I really that daft about history in England? It probably won't be my top priority, but still intrigued. Okay, now let us get to the special editions. I don't know if I have a particular order of him here, but these are all, what are they called? Chartwell books. Chartwell books. A little symbol here. They're all the editions, and they're essentially just giant. We're talking huge. Look at my face. My face is pretty big, and it's like the same size. And I have a bunch of these, several of these at least here, and I have more that I've hauled at home. I think I've hauled, but I definitely have them, regardless if I've told you about them. Dante's Divine Comedy. And I bought this because it's a classic, and it's one of the earlier works when it comes to Gothic or horror. And I'm intrigued to see what it's going to do. I don't know much more about it besides that. I think we all know about Dante well enough. We have this figure who goes through the 7 layers of hell or something. It's basically a story that goes through hell. Maybe that's just one of the stories. I'm not entirely sure. I just know it's like a really big classic, and it deals with hell and damnation or something like that. Heaven and Hells. It's kind of thin on the spectrum to some of these, but still fairly thick. Oh God. What I did not know is that these are poems? I didn't realize Dante's work was poem. Really, I should look into what I'm buying. Still, it means it's probably a little bit shorter than it looks. In any case, it's also illustrated by Gustave Doré, and that is the Divine Comedy, the Chartwell Books edition. Next, we have an author who thankfully is dead. I don't have to worry about giving him my money, but an author who nevertheless is someone I'm intrigued by because of his foundation to the field of horror, and that is H.P. Lovecraft. The entire collection. I was making very sure that this had all of his works, and as far as I know, this does have all of his works. It's a chunker. It's just seriously a chunker. Again, Chartwell Books edition, and well, it's something like not the highest quality edition. It looks fine. It's sturdy. It's hardcore, and it has everything I want in it. And I haven't read H.P. Lovecraft. I don't think I've ever read H.P. Lovecraft, He's an author that I seriously want to just dig through all of his works, and now that I have it on my shelf, I'm more likely to do that. And again, it's another case of finding an author who fits a genre I like. I'm not going to go through all of them. She's just so big. I love big books. They look so gorgeous. But anyways, if you want to know his collection, you can just Google it. But another beautiful edition. Okay, next we have one that, if I ever do one of those anti-TBR tags about a book that is on your shelf that you'll probably never read, might very well be one of them. But nevertheless, it is something I would like to think I will finish all of his works eventually. And that is the complete works of, oh wait, I'm sorry, this is not what I want. That is the complete works of William Shakespeare. I've read several of these in high school. Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, which is my favorite, but I haven't read any others. I'm more likely just to listen to the play, like listen to an audio adaptation of it, since it is just a play anyways. But I don't know. I remember it being so hard. I didn't really enjoy Macbeth in high school, but I really have my high school teacher to thank for that, like Miss Holland. Like, she was a fantastic English teacher, and like she got me to really care about Macbeth and about, you know, just Shakespeare when I really did not love the writing. Like when I think about Shakespeare now, I think about Macbeth, and I think about that scene with Lady Macbeth who's trying to wash the blood off her hands, and how much fun it was just to play that idea in class. Like, that's good teaching right there. Thank you to Miss Holland. Again, complete works of Shakespeare. Now, the book that I was about to hold up before is a little bit similar in my feelings, like a set of books I would like to read to, but I feel more confident that I am likely to get to them before I die. But that is the complete works of Sherlock Holmes. The entire works. Like, not much more you can say about that. We all know what Sherlock Holmes is. I'm not going to go through that, but I wanted to find an edition, and I think it was H.P. Lovecraft was one of the first ones that I decided to order, and this might have been the other one that I was thinking about. Like, I knew I wanted to own H.P. Lovecraft, and I found this publisher, and then I realized they had other works. They could let me see what they have, and I believe I decided I also wanted this one, not because I've ever read Sherlock Holmes, but because I know there is an audiobook edition narrated, the entire collection, and narrated by Stephen Fry, who I adore. And I was like, I want to listen to this narration, so I'm going to go ahead and get the collection. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to commit to it. I can do this, Josh. You can do this. You're going to read this. You're going to, well, listen, read, same thing. The reason I want to listen to it is just because I believe it's one of those books that is inside of that collection of audiobooks that you get as a premium Audible member, kind of like the S Word. What the fuck is that called? Kind of like Scribd. And those are all of the Chartwell editions. Well, these fuckers are heavy. Just to show you the 5 or the 4 Chartwell editions I have here. I believe there is 2 more at my house back home that I got in Canada. One of them I know was the Grimm Fairy Tales, and there may have been another one I do not recall. But you can see that if you go back to my old book hauls. I feel like I need to read these so I can then go back and just like talk about these beautiful books that I have, editions I have of them. Because until I read them, it's just like very superficial. Like, I do not deserve these until I read them. Personally, that's how I feel. So the next set of editions I want to show you, there are quite a few of them actually, and they are all Library of America editions. I talked about this in my horror book haul. It's a gorgeous edition. Like, I am an official member of their place, and they have a lot of amazing classics, hence me showing all these classics that I've gotten. I already own a couple Library of America back home, but I've actually went ahead and invested in one of these, like these little things. Bought them the regular edition. I did the paper cover, but I wanted a hardcover to go over it. And as a member of Library of America, I can order those for fairly cheap. And these too, like these are, I think, $25 books, editions. This entire edition, $25, because I have a yearly membership. And I love it. I love it so much. This is my favorite edition, way more than Chartwell. It's a little bit tame, like a bit more adult for me than I would care for. I do love the flashy covers. Nevertheless, this is going to look gorgeous on my fucking shelves once I get home and make this entire shelf now dedicated to Library of America. I'm so psyched for that. But it will have to break my line that I usually draw of red versus not red, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to put them all together. But let's go ahead and start with the ones that I have here. These first 2 I'm going to show you are books that I actually bought since I've been in Georgia, because I got stuff in the mail from Library of America and I was like, oh, I want these books, but also because I've already read at least 1 book in them. I said before, right, I'm not letting myself buy new books, but since if it's a collection that has at least 1 story I've already read, I consider that acceptable. Let's just put it that way. And for this one, it is Little Women, as well as Little Men and Joe Boys by Louisa May Alcott. And I read Little Women last year after Books and Law. I did, and I heard the hype, and I was like, okay, I'll try it. And I liked it. I didn't love it as much as she did, but I enjoyed it. And I would like to explore the other ones. I've since found, the great thing with the classics is that there's so many audio narrations of them, and I've since found one that I really want to try out. I think it's on Scribd. So here we are, Library of America's Little Women Living collection, which I thought there were 4 books in that collection, but I guess there's only 3. I knew there was at least those 3. So maybe that's the entire collection now. Next, we have the other collection I bought while I was in town, and that is Arthur Miller's collected plays. Now, what does that mean? Of course, if you've ever read The Crucible or Death of a Salesman, those are the only 2 I've read. This has a bunch of other stuff in there. Will I ever listen to them? Probably not. Maybe one day I'll get an audio edition of the plays and listen to them. It's not a high priority. It's enough for me that I wouldn't want to own an edition of his works with this. But the ones that I've owned, of like, I'm not going to read the rest of these, and they're just such huge editions. I don't want them. They don't look good because I was buying them used. And then I noticed that Library of America had an edition of it. And I'm like, you know what? Because it's Library of America and it sort of adds to the aesthetic of my Library of America, general collection, I'm okay with having a book that I don't intend on finishing on that shelf. Just to be able to admire the fact that, yeah, I liked those 2 plays, particularly The Crucible. Granted, it's been since high school now, over 10 years since I've read these, but I liked them at the time. But again, I think part of that has to do with my high school teacher, who, the way she taught them just made them work. Like, they weren't even particularly great, but like my memory of them is positive. Okay, next up is a book that I wouldn't have bought, but it was like becoming a Library of America member meant that I was able to get a certain free collection if I wanted to, and this seemed to be the best one I could find, and that is Joan Didion, the 1960s and 1970s. I never heard of her before this, but to give you some context, let's see. Cool, dispassionate, and incisive, Joan Didion's voice is electric on the page. Using autobiographical elements to stunning literary effect, she has captured the anarchic convulsions and anxious contradictions of the waning American century. Blah, 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 blah. I don't know. Just a classic author who seems to get a lot of praise. This was one of the few options I had to get a free one. I figured, why not? And maybe I will read them. I'm not quite sure. But works in here, if you've heard of her, maybe you know these. Run River, Slushing Towards Bethlehem, Play It As It Lays. I think that's the play I remember hearing about. I think she's really well known for Play It As It Lays, but nevertheless, that was the collection I've got here. I think I need to be more efficient about how I'm talking about these, because there's only so much I can say about a collection, especially authors I don't know a lot about. This next one, do I have the paper in here? Kurt Vonnegut's Novels and Stories 1950 to 1962. And this is the first of, I want to say, 4 different collections they have for Kurt Vonnegut, and he was someone who I believe I want to read all of his works. The problem is I've read none of his works, so I'm not confident enough to buy all of them. So instead I decided I'm just going to start with the first collection here, and this was his earliest set of works. You have Player Piano, The Sirens of Titan, which is definitely up my alley, Mother Nights, and Stories. The Sirens of Titan, I believe, is a time travel story or something. I ran out of space for just a second, but let's get back to it. We're almost done, I promise you that. As I was saying, the Sirens of Titan, I don't know a lot about them, but I do know it's some kind of science fiction story. I don't want to risk talking about something I know nothing about, so I'm just going to let it sit. Like I was saying, he is an author who I think I want to read all of his collection for, but I do not want to risk buying his entire collection and realize I don't like his writing. But I've heard so much praise, I want to give it a try. Hopefully I'll like it. I mean, I thought I had bought the Slaughterhouse 5 book. I have not. If I end up not buying the rest of these, I'm sure I'll at least buy an edition of that, because I do want to read that. But I think among these, I think the Sirens of Titan are the one I'm most excited for. The Player Piano is one that I remember hearing something about and being mildly intrigued. And now to finish this off, I'm going to give you the last 4 all at once. Oh, Jesus. And why is that? Because half these Library of America editions that I have for you is actually just John Steinbeck. Look at this, a gorgeous set of books. This is his entire collection ever created. In my horror book haul, I showed you Shirley Jackson. Well, guess what? Shirley Jackson's pales in comparison, apparently, to John Steinbeck. And I've now read only 2 of his books. Of Mice and Men, which I adored, and now East of Eden, which I really liked as well. It was one of my favorite books last year. And I'm just so psyched to read the rest. I already own several of his books in another edition, Grapes of Wrath, as well as The Pearl, but I decided I want to read all of them. Like, it's one of those authors who I feel confident that I really just want to go all in on his work. And the fact that he has so many is as intimidating as it is exciting. Dear God, look at this gorgeous. Just look how gorgeous they are next to each other. Just look at that. It pays the debt. It could help save my poor Cosette. Forgive my many eccentricities. Novels and Stories, 1932. The Grapes of Wrath and Other Writings, 1936 to 1941. Novels, 1942 to 1950 something. Travels with Charlie and later novels, 1947 to 1962. presumably his time of death. And that is just, I'm just so fucking excited. It's a gorgeous set here. Oh, I'm gonna take a look at this set before I drop it. Is it gorgeous? Is it not gorgeous? One of those ones upside down, but I don't care. So those are all the classic books that I am hauling. To wrap it up, it's essentially Library of America, Chartwell books, and Daphne du Maurier books. Those three things. I'm excited. I've never been so excited about classics, and I don't know what it is. I think just buying books is fun, but also buying books and finding books in a genre you're afraid of that you think are exceptions to your trepidation that you have towards other books is just the way to go. It's the perfect way to go if you want to try something new, or if you're delving into something you're unsure about. And that's what these authors are. Daphne du Maurier, John Steinbeck. These are all authors that I'm excited to get to. And then you have these other classics that, like, I wanted to read for the longest time, but also I've been nervous about. You know, now that I have this beautiful collection, it's just another motivation for me to pick it up and give it a shot. You know, before I can read it, I have to have it on hand. But that's enough rambling. I'm sure you're tired of all this, but if you made it this far, thank you. You're the best. And why don't you give me a stack of books in the comments just to show you made it this far. As always, have a great day. Let me know if you'll read any of these, or which of these are your favorites. I'm sure y'all must have read some of these. But as always, have a fantastic day, and everyone stay safe. And I will see you all next time.